Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new podcast series from Scality, the makers of the Scality Ring and Scality Artesca. We're very happy to be here. We're going to start discussing relevant topics in the storage industry, in the tech industry at large, in the world at large, anything that we deem as interesting and something that we think might be interesting to our listeners. I'm joined today by one of the founders of Scality, that's Giorgio Regni. Giorgio, you want to say hi? And
Hi, Paul. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here.
great to have you here. Giorgio's been the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer of the company since the inception. And I am fortunate enough to be in the role of the Chief Marketing Officer. And together we've worked together over a dozen years. So it's been quite a while.
More than years, yes.
Quite exciting for us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to kick this off, we're starting to think about what topics our listeners might want to hear about. And one of the more recent things we announced last week is a new Cozy driver. So for those of you in the object storage space, you might be familiar with it. Some of you may not. This is the Container Object Storage Interface, and it's entirely related to Kubernetes. Maybe we can start with some basic description of what it is, Giorgio, and then maybe talk about the workflow and the benefits.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so Kubernetes is all about automating your platform and provisioning of services. And what Cozy gives you is the ability to use external object storage the same way that you would use any Kubernetes resource. So you would configure it in your YAML files, and it will automate creating a bucket, creating credentials, giving you access to your bucket, and think of it as bucket as a service. And it doesn't matter if the object store is local or distant, as long as it supports Cozy.
Okay, got it. So there used to be something for file, which was CSI. This is kind of the object store equivalent.
CSI still exists,
Okay.
and Cozy is the object storage equivalent.
Okay, very good. And I understand that we've published this one. It's on GitHub. We'll show the pointer to the repo later. But this one supports an S3 object store like our Ring and our Tesca, but also uses AWS IAM. So that's one
Yes.
difference.
Yeah, it goes further in terms of security, but supporting IAM. And you could also use it with other object storage as long as it both support the S3 API and the IAM API from
Okay.
IAM.
Very good, very good. Okay, so some of the higher end products, like again, I said our Ring and our Tesca do support both.
Yep.
Can we say just basically a little bit about the workflow processes?
Yeah, so I don't want to get into all the details of the different Kubernetes elements, but the Cozy driver is the one talking to the S3 interface and the IAM interface. That's what we developed and put on GitHub. It's open source. And this orchestrates inside of Cozy so that you can write your YAML file of configuration for bucket class, bucket claim, and all of that will automatically call the right API on the object store side.
Okay. I understand that this is probably mostly of interest to DevOps staff, IT admins. Is that, and what do you think the benefits are for those folks?
Yeah, I think I would classify into three areas. One is automation,
Mm-hmm.
and we can dig down into that. There's an element of cybersecurity that comes with this, some benefits. And then it's about portability and future proofing. Since Cozy is a standard,
Mm-hmm.
by integrating your object storage this way, that means you can deploy on a different Kubernetes provider and not have to change your configuration. You could run this on another system, use our driver in the cloud. Maybe you're on-prem right now, you go in the cloud in the future or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
By using Cozy, it's portable and future-proof in a way.
Okay, I understand. All right, so this is of great benefit, multiple benefits for people doing kind of cloud native work with Kubernetes.
In
Okay.
terms of, if you want to talk about automation, think of it as kind of a bucket as a service, because sometimes you have 10 buckets and you could do that by hand. What do you need Cozy? Let's say now you give access to all your developers to your Kubernetes platform, and there might be 100 and they might try it 1,000 times. So now it's 10,000 or 100,000 buckets. With Cozy, it's not harder to do that than to do one bucket because it's just one configuration and everything else is automated.
Is that a common thing that buckets are stood up and removed or deleted?
Yeah, it's also about life cycle. We're doing this. You can also, there's a lot of built-in observability
Yeah.
metrics, log, traces as part of Cozy. So
Hmm.
as an SRE, you can actually know via Prometheus how many buckets have been created per day.
Yeah.
Have they been deleted after the resource is not being consumed anymore? How many credentials were being created? All of that is now observable.
Okay. I understand. Those are critical people, the site reliability engineers. So
Yes,
I'm glad we mentioned them.
people who don't sleep a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
In terms of cybersecurity, using IAM, you can make sure that you have a minimum amount of credentials.
Hmm.
Like if you create this for as part of your QA, you do quality, you use a Kubernetes to automate it, and you want to start a container that needs S3 for 10 minutes. This will make sure that the credential disappear when the container dies, so
Yeah.
you haven't leaked credentials, and will manage the entire lifecycle for you, so you don't have to keep track of all these buckets and all these credentials.
It makes sense. I've heard about this practice of least privilege, right?
Yes,
That's sort
least
of
privilege, absolutely. Yep.
okay. Very good. All right. Sounds like plenty of benefits. Maybe in summary, why don't we give a few pointers to our listeners? There is a blog that we published just about a week ago. Here, it's at this URL. Talks a little bit more about how this might be used in an actual use case. The driver itself, as I mentioned earlier, is on GitHub. And if for those of you that are interested in just more general info on the Scality Ring, which is our object store, again, it's S3 compatible, AWS compatible. I provided a URL here to the product info. So I think with that, we'll see you on the next topic. Thanks,
Yeah.
Giorgio.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.